Hi team and welcome back. In this session we're going to be taking a look at what we call reactive manufacturing. And those are those people that have a sale first and then manufacture to fulfill that sale. So their process is to order their raw materials, wait for a sale, once they get their sale, then manufacture. We're then going to throw in the complexity of batch numbers. Those are really common in industries like food, pharmaceuticals, and health goods. So if you're in one of those industries or you use reactive manufacturing, this session's for you. So we're going to start our reactive manufacturing journey with a sale. This is the beginning of the chain reaction that sets off the assembly of our finished goods. So we're going to go to sales, orders, and add a sales order. We're in the demo of All Blue Jays Apparel Limited. I've set up a product called 100-gram jelly beans that they sell for promotional consumption. So here we're going to sell a bunch of these jelly beans to in and out distributors. And they're going to want it delivered locally. Actually, we better put a, we'll drop it off ourselves. How about that? So as Ross made the sale as a direct sale. Sales, as a result of a salesperson visit, and we're going to drop it off on Friday. How about that? Excellent. Cool. So let's add our jelly beans in, Blue Jay jelly beans, and they're going to be wanting, let's say, 50 units. Great. I'm going to click add. Cool. And so what you'll see here is that this is a batch tracked item, and as a finished good, it should be, if especially if it's a food or pharmaceutical-based product. You'll notice that inside this product, you get an extra column that says batch, and what that's wanting to know is it wants to know what batch numbers we are going to pull from when we fulfill this order. But we don't have to do that just yet. So I'm going to place this order, place like so, and that's going to be a firm order. That's the beginning of the process. The next thing we're going to need to do is manufacture these jelly beans. So we've had our sale now. We want to go and make some of these jelly beans. So in order to do this, we're going to have a bill of materials set up, and but I've done that already, so I'm going to go straight into assemblies and add an assembly. This is the actual process of pulling together our raw materials in order to fulfill this order. Excellent. So I'm going to add my assembly, and I'm going to make some jelly beans, putting in my finished good up here at the top, and it's going to refresh for me with all the ingredients that I'm going to need. So I'm going to need they ordered 50 units. I'm going to need assemble 50 units. Fantastic. Okay, so this is what it's done is it's taken that recipe and multiplied that by 50, and it's going to say you're going to need 2 bottles of dye. You're going to need gelatin, 0.05 1,000 packs of plastic packets, and 0.13 kg of a 25 kg bag. So that's what that's asking for there. You also noted we get hit with another batch column here, and that's because the raw materials themselves, and you might be in this situation where your raw materials as well as your finished goods are tracked for batch numbers. Again, really common in food, and so it's going to want to know what bag of sugar we're pulling from to make these jelly beans, and that's going to let us track back, if we need to, not only what batch jelly beans went out, but what batch of sugar or raw materials those went into those jelly beans to start with. Right, so even before we can complete this assembly, we're going to need to tell it what batch number it's coming from. So if you open up this batch section here, and if you don't have batch tracked raw materials, you're not going to need to do this. But what it's asking for, it wants to know whereabouts my 0.13 of a 25 kg bag is going to come from. And we only have one bag sitting there, so I'm just going to type in, we're going to take 0.13 of it, like so. Fantastic. Okay, so if I click complete, there we go, it's telling me batch number cannot be empty. Yes, so because I'm manufacturing my finished goods, I'm going to need to now assign my own internal batch number to these jelly beans. So you should have a naming process for this, and I'm going to go with BJJ, and that's going to be stamped or printed on the physical item or not. If my finished goods have an expiry date, you can enter that in as well, and I'll imagine that these expire next October. Sounds pretty good. Cool. Now I'm able to complete because I've identified my batch numbers for my raw materials and for my finished goods. So I can save, go and assemble them, and then when I'm finished assembling them, click complete. And that's going to subtract down all these items and plus 50 units of jelly beans. Cool. Great. So now that that's finished, we need to do the last step, and that is to fulfill our sales order. So if I go back into sales orders and view sales orders, we'll see our sale there for in and out distributors. This one here, for the jelly beans that they're after. Great, and you notice now that they're after 50 units. Previously we didn't have any batches to pull from, but now if I open up this batch column here, I can see these are all the different batches of jelly beans we should have sitting there in a box somewhere, and I can say how I'm going to fulfill these 50 units, and that could come from my most freshest assembly that I've just done, but more than likely you're going to want to pull from your older stock first if possible. So we're going to pull 30 from our older stock and 20 from our most recent stock. And so that's going to leave 10 in that batch number there, and the 50 we just manufactured are going to be sitting there for another order to come. Now that these two numbers here sum to our total, Unleashed is happy because it knows exactly what went out specifically. Now that it's done, we'll be able to complete that order. So what we did there was what we call the reactive manufacturing process, and that is where we receive a sale and then manufacture our finished goods. We threw in the complexity of having batch numbers not only on our finished goods going out, but also on some of our raw materials that were going into them. And that's mainly aimed at you food, pharmaceutical and healthcare based manufacturers. So hopefully you enjoyed that session, and I'll see you in the next one.